Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Tuesday tip, where in this video I'm going to teach you how to do a fakie. So before we get into the prerequisites that you need to know before you learn fakies and how you actually do them, let's define what a fakie is. And to put it simply, a fakie is a movement in which the bike is ridden backwards. Not the kind of riding backwards where you sit on the handlebars and pedal the bike with you facing backwards, but the entire bike and you moving backwards with the back wheel in the front and the front wheel in the back according to the direction of motion of the bike. A fakie is one of the easiest things that you can learn when starting out in riding BMX, because the only prerequisite to learning how to ride fakie is just being comfortable on your bike. You don't really have to know how to bunny hop or anything like that. There are some circumstances where being able to bunny hop might help, but it's not 100% necessary, and that's what makes it a great starter trick when learning how to ride BMX. And with that being said, that's the prerequisites and the definition of a fakie, so let's move into how you actually do a fakie. Step one to learning how to fakie is finding somewhere to practice them on. I recommend a 4-foot quarter pipe or bigger because I believe that this gives you the perfect amount of speed to learn how to do fakies, but you don't have to practice them at a skate park or anywhere specific at all. You just need something that you can roll up on and then back down from with enough speed to continue your fakie motion. And that's a pretty simple first step, so let's move on to step number 2, and that is to figure out which direction you should turn your fakie around in. Generally, fakies are turned around the same direction that you naturally spin, regardless of your foot position. You don't have to do it this way, but whenever you turn a fakie around the same direction that you spin, it provides a more fluid and consistent motion, as well as a more aesthetically pleasing turnaround to your fakie. So if you spin to the right, you're going to turn your fakie around to the right, and if you spin to the left, you're going to turn your fakie around to the left. So now that you've figured out which way you should turn your fakie around, once you've gotten into it, the next logical step, and step number 3, is to get into the fakie. For this video, I'm going to be teaching you guys using a quarter pipe, so you may have to adjust a little bit if you're using something else, but everything should be fairly similar, other than maybe if you're going up a grass bank, you might have to go faster. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here. The first thing that you're going to want to do to get into a fakie is approach the quarter at a moderate enough speed to get your front tire at least halfway up it. 3/4 of the way up it is a little bit better because it gives you more speed. And when it comes to a fakie, the faster you go moving backwards, the easier it is to stay balanced. The same way that it works moving forwards, where the more speed you have, the easier it is to stay balanced. So go 3/4 or halfway up the quarter pipe with your front tire. And if you have a cassette, this is the point where you want to start backpedaling so that you can prepare for the pushback of your cranks in your cassette. If you have a freecoaster, this is the point where you just want to prepare to keep your balance and keep the bike up. And if you have a cassette, you're going to want to be thinking about that at the same time, as well as pedaling backwards with your pedals. Some people with cassette hubs like to start pedaling backwards as soon as they start rolling up the quarter pipe. You can do this too. It really doesn't matter as long as you're pedaling backwards before the bike starts moving backwards. And no matter what kind of hub you have, this is the point where you want to start thinking about keeping your balance as you're moving backwards. And that is going to be step number 4, balance. Balance is kept in a fakie by turning the tire the opposite direction that you're falling. So if you're falling to the left, you're going to want to turn the bars to the right, and if you're falling to the right, you're going to want to turn the bars to the left. Now, in regards to keeping a fakie up and keeping balanced, this is something that really only comes with time. And I know I said in the video that you want to turn the bars the opposite direction that you're falling, but it's really touchy and it just depends on the fakie. Just like when moving forward, it's not always the same. Sometimes you do turn the same direction you're falling. It all depends upon where you're leaning. You just want to stay over the center of the bike and try to keep your balance and your weight as centered as possible while you're moving backwards, so that it is easier to keep the bike up. The more you're leaning, the more you're falling off the bike. The farther that you're going, the more you have to turn and the crazier your fakie can get. Now, you really don't have to travel very far backwards to roll out of a fakie, but the more balance you develop, the easier it will be to roll out of a fakie. And that is the next and last step. Step number 5 is the rollout. This is the part where things become a little bit more complex depending upon which way you spin and what kind of hub you have, because you have to have different advice for each of these things. So let's start out simple. If you spin to the right, whenever you're doing a fakie and you want to roll out to the right, you're going to be riding your fakie and you're going to turn the bars to the left and lean slightly left so that the bike starts to roll backwards and to the right. And if you spin to the left, you're going to do the exact opposite. While you're riding fakie, you're going to lean slightly to the right and turn the bars to the right so that the bike starts to turn to the left. And this is the part where what type of hub you have comes into play, because if you have a cassette, things work differently than if you have a free coaster. If you have a cassette, once you get about to the halfway point of turning your fakie around, you can shift your weight the opposite direction and the direction that you want to go and start to pedal forwards and look the direction you want to go, while also pulling that way with your bars, and that will pull you to the direction you need to go, whether it's spinning to the right or the left, and you just continue the same motion that you were on. But if you have a free coaster, there's no pedal pressure there when you're turning it around to rely on. So if you want to turn it around without doing anything else, you'll have to do this in a pretty exaggerated motion. It's about the same thing, but it's a lot harder, and it's just a very quick motion that can be hard to grasp if this is the very first thing that you're learning how to do on your bike. I would personally recommend using a cassette to learn how to do fakies, but a lot of people get free coasters on their complete bikes and get free coasters right off the bat and learn how to fakie, so there's no reason that you can't too. The motion of bunny hopping to roll out of a fakie is called a half cab, and this is basically where you get to the point that we've explained thus far, where you start turning the bike in order to get to the direction you need to go. And once you're about halfway around, you do a bunny hopping motion by picking up the front end and then picking up the rear end. If you don't know how to bunny hop at this point, I will leave a link in the description and an info card on the screen for a video I made on how to bunny hop. But at this point, you will do the bunny hopping motion while looking in the direction that you want to go, and then you'll land your bunny hop and you'll land your half cab, finishing your fakie. This is probably not the easiest way to start rolling out of your fakies. It's just going to require a little bit more practice to get the quick movement that is a half cab out of a fakie. Also, don't forget that if you do have a free coaster and you are learning fakies this way, that it is harder than with a cassette. So don't give up, stick to it. You will learn it, it will happen, and it will come to you eventually, I promise. And with that being said, that's going to wrap up this video on how to do a fakie. I hope that you found it useful. I know that fakies can feel very complex and complicated at first, but it's a skill that once you get it down, it will stick with you for as long as you ride and open up an entirely new world of tricks for you to try. I'm sorry about this wind that is all of a sudden picking up behind me here. Hopefully you learned how to fakie from this video. If you did, let me know in the comments down below. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them in the comments below as well. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button down below. I come out with tips and tricks videos just like this one every Tuesday at or before 4 p.m., as well as a BMX news video on Fridays and other types of riding videos and sometimes streams throughout the week. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.